Hello, this is Jason Matthews. I'm a retired law enforcement officer, and in the beginning of my career in law enforcement, I worked in maximum security. And so today I'm going to be telling you how race works in prison. I think you're going to be pretty shocked on how this actually works. It's very much an unknown subject to most people in society of how this actually plays out and how this works. Now, this is dated information, and so if anything has changed, which I seriously doubt, and I'll explain why in this video, but if something has changed, if something that I'm saying is dated, please let me know in the comments section. If you are currently working in corrections, in prison, and I'm specifically going to be talking about maximum security because that's where my experience was, in maximum security. I didn't work in any other level of security. So at the lower levels, this may not be applicable. But before we get started, if you support the police, click the like button. And if you do not support the police, click the dislike button. It's anonymous and I'm just curious. Let's get started. How does race work in prison? Gangs in prison in maximum security control pretty much everything. So gangs control everything that the correctional officers or the administration of the prison does not control. And sometimes they actually control the administration and the correctional officers. It depends on the circumstances, on how corrupt the administration is, how efficient the administration is, how much they're willing to uphold rules and regulations or not. So a lot of it depends on the leadership at that time. I've been in prisons where it was extremely well ran, very well regulated, and there were not a lot of problems. And the administration and the correctional officers had a lot of control. And then I've been in others where they were pandering a lot to the inmates, and that is a recipe for disaster. But the gangs run prison. And so because of that, because we're dealing with criminals with a very low consciousness level, they resort back to survival instinct. And if you haven't watched my video entitled, Are the Police Racist? This plays into that a lot. So go back and watch that video when you're done with this one, Are the Police Racist? And in prison, everything is ran on survival. And when people resort to survival, they resort to survival instincts. And that includes grouping yourself with people that you're familiar with. And so the way it works in prison is, if you're white, you will be divided with the whites. If you're black, you'll be divided with the blacks. If you're Asian, you'll be divided with the Asians. If you're Hispanic, you'll be divided with Hispanic, and so on. You have no choice. You'll sit with your race, and you will defend your race, and you're not going to be buddies with someone else of other races. Now, you may have a casual relationship with someone of another race, but you're not going to be hanging out long hours chatting with them. It's going to be a very casual relationship. So one thing I'm going to reveal right now that is very hard for people to understand and probably pretty shocking if you have not actually been in prison or worked in prison is when a new inmate comes in from wherever they're coming from, either the outside and they're first coming into prison, or they're coming from the special housing unit, for example, the disciplinary unit, and they're coming back into their normal housing unit, their regular housing unit, or being assigned to a regular housing unit. When I was a correctional officer, and you can tell me if it's changed, but it was mandatory by policy that you will not sell two people of a different race together. In other words, you will not sell a white inmate with a black inmate. And why is that? Because that will last maybe a minute. If you put them in a cell together, they are obligated by their race to fight each other and to not sell with someone of a different race, not have a living space with someone of a different race. So you always sell white with white, black with black, Hispanic with Hispanic, even though Hispanic isn't even a race, but we're talking low consciousness criminals here. So if you were to sell two people of a different race, all you're doing is setting up a fight. And if, for example, a white person and a black person were to accept each other into a cell, they would be targeted by their own race. they will be beat up, if not worse, and they will go to the special housing unit or protection unit. They will not last more than 5 minutes out on what we call the line, general population. Now, there were a lot of different gangs when I was in prison as a correctional officer. They've probably changed to some degree, so I'm not going to get into that. Maybe in a different video I will get into that. But for now, I'm just telling you that gangs, which are based on race, run the prisons. They determine what happens in the prisons and what does not happen in the prisons. And so gangs are divided down racial lines. Gangs in prison are self-separating. They will pair off themselves. It's not the correctional officers. It's not the prison administration. They are dividing themselves among themselves. And so, as I said about spiral dynamics in my video entitled, Are the Police Racist? There's different levels of consciousness here. And when you're talking about criminals, we're talking about probably stage red spiral dynamics. So if you're at stage green, especially, and you're thinking, that's really strange, that's shocking. To you, that's shocking because you're not at that stage anymore. And that's why a lot of stage green people have a very hard time understanding people at lower levels because they're not even conscious of people at different levels. So in future videos, I will expand upon this based on subjects related to race, because everything is related to race in prison. But I wanted to lay this groundwork explaining to you the importance of race in prison. If you enjoyed this video, click the subscribe button and ring the notification bell to be notified when new videos are released. Take care and have a great day.